National down to 28% in the latest poll that we brought you on Friday. The Prime Minister, Christopher Luxon, says, I ain't going nowhere, but then there is this.
Well, I mean, we obviously understand. We're not saying that. What we're saying is that we understand this. I don't know how to be any clearer, guys. I mean.
So, has he been clear enough? Joining us this morning for some analysis. Much needed. Trish Sherson, Sherson Willis Director. Good morning.
Good morning, Ryan.
Good to see you here. Phil Goff, former Labor Party leader, been there, done that a few times himself. Phil, good morning.
Good morning, Ryan.
Trish, I'll start with you. I mean, he's not going to go anywhere, clearly. He doesn't want to. Caucus looks to be behind him. Storm in a teacup?
Well, I don't think it's in Luxon's DNA to resign. This is a guy who is not about failure. And I think he will want to dig in, but if he does want to dig in, then he has to really think about how he's going to reset. So reset in terms of tone, I would say reset in terms of taking feedback around what's not working for him. And I also think he has to start doing a lot of work to build his political relationships, because as you've pointed out, coups only start when there's organisation in the caucus, but also down, and Phil will know this, down into the backbench when you've got people on the backbench who are in marginal seats or don't have list cover heading into this election. That's where this can start to foment.
Absolutely. Phil, can you tell us what you think is going to happen today, if anything?
Well, 28.4, what that means in real terms is 12 less national MPs in their caucus. That will focus their minds, and some of those MPs that will lose will be list MPs who are senior ministers. Look, I don't think it's a done deal that Luxon will go. Can he change, which is Trish's point? I think it's really hard for him to change. I think he's now in his third year. That's right.
And he's not learning.
I saw commentators say last week that this was that the performance over the Iran war was the worst they'd ever seen from a sitting Prime Minister. And I think that's right. Look, I've got nothing against Christopher Luxon at all. I think he's quite a nice guy. I get on quite well with him. But his performance as Prime Minister has been abysmal. He hasn't come up to the mark. And that poll result, 28.4, is less than 3 points above the low point that Judith Collins scored in the 2020 election.
Not great. But then the real question, surely, and I think this is what voters will want to decide on, is not who does the best press conference, who can answer a question about a war that actually we don't have much of a say in, but who is better at managing the economy. And I still think, even after this last week, I still think that it'll be a centre-right party, a centre-right coalition that gets into government come November's election.
Well, it's great. I think we should talk about voters for the very reason that your numbers just turned up. What's happening now with these questions around Luxon, in a time of instability, voters are saying, are they focused on themselves, the National Party, or are they focused on my back pocket? And when you get numbers like this going up at the pump, that increases voters' uncertainty. So I think that, to me, is the warning signal to National. They've already got a problem with not connecting with voters. Voters aren't feeling better in the hip pocket. This just ratchets up the heat. If those numbers are coming off National and they're going to Act in New Zealand First, Act in New Zealand First won't be losing sleep over it. They will love it, but it means the centre-right bloc are going to keep it. If those votes are coming off that soft sort of swing vote centre for National and they're going to Labour, that's when you get real worries for whether or not the centre-right bloc will get back in.
Yeah, I think the figure that really counts, it's not to do with the Iran war. That's of interest to people and concern. It's of more concern when it starts to impact on our economy.
Yeah.
But look at the food prices in the year to January this year. They were up 4.6. It's wonderful for our farmers that they've had another big boost in dairy prices internationally. But guess what that does to cheese and to butter and to dairy products?
Yeah.
And it is, do people feel better? No, they don't. Can the government get away with saying legitimately, this is not our fault, this is because of the war in Iran? Well, they weren't quite that generous to the Labor government when they said it was because of COVID, and both of those things were right. The government doesn't control everything, they will still get the blame. And does it look like Christopher Luxon and his team are in charge of things? On that performance last week, no, not at all. It doesn't give people confidence.
The other question, of course, Trish, is, and very quickly, is would anyone want this poison chalice at a time like this? You know, who wants to step us? Like, you know, like we're down in the polls, we haven't got on top of cost of living, and now there's a war.
Well, I think that's an interesting point, but if you're in politics, you are in politics ultimately for the big job to be Prime Minister, and I would be surprised if there aren't strong aspirations amongst some of those leading ministers, but they will be calculating when to step up. I think the other big thing, though, to watch here is New Zealand can't afford another huge pendulum swing. We just can't financially afford it. It won't help with those back pocket issues for voters. So, you know, National and ACT and New Zealand First, they need to really get across this and sell themselves to voters as, you know, as the right thing.
Absolutely.